Welcome back to keep the conversation going. I am Chido Ranganayi, and my co-host is
Natasha Mawera.
uh,
And today we've got a special guest. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rachael Olorundahunsi. The surname is quite long, but I'm Nigerian and I'm a second year student in the School of Management for Business Management and Human Resources Management. So yeah,
nice.
It's great to have you here.
thank you.
Do you want to start maybe talking about maybe what you're involved in on campus? Is there anything in particular that you're doing?
Okay.
How has
Um,
your experience at Swansea been?
okay. Presently, I am the officer for the Nigerian Student Society, and I also volunteer for the Connect project and the Inspire project for the university. Yeah, I think that's basically what I do a bit on university presently. Oh, and I'm also a subject rep for business management. Yeah, the course. I'm the subject rep. So university has been okay. When I first got here, it was quite of a I was quite in denial. Now this can't be happening because 6 hours flight, a long way from home. I was scared. And I came with my sister, so it did reduce the fear a little bit, but it was still quite shocking. But now I've settled down. I'm in my second year, obviously. So it's going well. It's going good. Yeah.
That's really
Yes.
good. With regards to your role as welfare officer for the Nigerian Society, what does that role entail?
Basically what I do is I'm like the information post. Like if you have any problems, you have questions, you need help or you need anything basically, I can help you with that. If it's something that we can handle within the committee, then yeah, if it's something we need to take to the university, then I'm basically just the help center, put it like that. Yeah. If you have any problems, I can help you with that. Like if you need someone to talk to, you can if we ask around, if someone is willing to, you can send your email to the person and you can have a chat with the person. Or if you want just general help,
Yeah.
general help.
Mm. No, that's really good. That's really
Yeah,
good. Especially right now, with everything that's
exactly.
happening, I think that's such an imperative position to have in a society where you
Mm.
deal with students. Yeah, no, that's really good. How do you manage to balance all of that with your studies?
Well, I well, at first I wasn't really. I was a very disorganized person at the beginning of first year. So I think it was in the middle of first year I sat myself down and was like, okay, we need to get ourselves in order if we're going to do this right. So first I got because I was always on my phone a lot, so I got a physical planner, a book planner. So reduces the time on my phone because I used to plan everything on my phone and sometimes I get confused where I put everything. Exactly. So there I with my I look at my timetable for my studies and when I'm free and I can be able to set meetings or plan everything, anything I need to do, even grocery shopping. I write it down so I know, okay, this is what I have to do at this time. And I give myself like a time range, 30 minutes, 1 hour, I had to get this done, then move to the next thing. So it has become easier. And if I can't end up doing it, I usually send an email to the president of the committee or to my project coordinator who might help me set another time or help me give it to someone else to do it. So it's just planning. I plan everything and it's really been helpful.
That was like a big student top tip.
I know, right? Like,
No, it does. It seriously can save you a lot of problems.
100%. You are not
Yeah.
wrong.
100%, 100%.
And
Definitely.
it can be quite daunting. A lot of people, trust me, when I first started, I was like, God, I can't just be writing everything down. It wasn't, it's something that you have to continue. If you just if you don't continue, it just scatters everything. So I think planning.
Yes, consistency is key in that
Yeah.
area. You're
Yeah.
right. You're
So
right.
I guess going into a little bit of why we're here and having this conversation, it's Black History Month. We are in October. And I think there was just no way we couldn't do a conversation about this, considering everything that's been going on. Chido, do you want to give us a little bit of background on what Black History Month is, why it matters?
Yeah. So just like Natasha was saying, today we'll be talking about Black History Month, you know, where it started and how it's going. So, you know, Black History Month was started in the US in 1976, and then in the UK in 1987. Basically what happened was, you know, because of slavery, because of colonization, you know, there were high populations of Black people in, you know, Western countries, and not a lot of them were recognized for their work. You know, they weren't accredited for some of the great things they were doing in history, and the history of Black people in those countries wasn't being taught at the time. So, you know, it was initially started to have conversations around racism, to challenge racism, and to educate people about Black history, basically. Yeah, that's the history of it all.
Yeah, as well as celebrating the achievements, I think you mentioned,
Oh yeah,
of Black people. Yeah.
yeah. I think of our first question would be, why do you guys think it would be important then, at least? Like, why do you think Black History Month would be an important thing to start then?
I would say, I mean, you know, trying to imagine myself back then, I think it was very, at least from what I've learned and read and all that we've listened to, it was very difficult being Black, especially when you were in a white majority country and where racism was really such a big thing. And in America, that's like racism, I mean, slavery is what I wanted to say.
Racism, yes, though. Racism,
Yes
yes.
to racism, but you know, you live in a very racist culture, and I think it's very easy for the Black person to be overshadowed because they've constantly just been seen as the worker, the person that is serving. And you know, Black people have, at least across the board, seem to be very hardworking people. So I think at that point, especially as Black people were rising, they probably needed their voices to be elevated because they were probably doing work, you know, as, you know, the same as their counterparts, or maybe even better. And sometimes you do need that thing, that recognition to say, I am Black and I did this.
Yeah, yeah. I thought of media that we've seen, and you know, like movies and series, and you know, people like Hidden Figures, or the women that were, you know, being portrayed in Hidden Figures, or Madam C.J. Walker, you know, like excuse me, shows like that, movies like that, that highlight that there were actually Black people doing great things at the same time during the Industrial Revolution, and you know, during modernization as well. So it's not just, you know, Black people weren't doing anything, it's just that it wasn't highlighted. So
yeah, exactly.
I agree. I totally agree, because there was this I was talking about this with, I think, a friend, or the story the person used to like explain it was like, if it's like a race, let's say like a 200-meter race. You give the white person a head start, but you see that maybe you give the white person a 50-meter head start, they run. But you see a Black person is still trying to overcome, still trying to win that race. I think that's basically it. You see people who have gone through the highest possible racism. Everybody is telling them that they can't do this because they are of this color, or they can't do this because they are not built to, or they are not meant to, because they are Black. So I think the main reason for creating it was to give Black people that recognition that even though we've been through a lot, they've gone through slavery, we've gone through the high amount of racism, they still can do some big things. People were still doing some very, very good things during that period. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it really is a thing of appreciating. And I think it's crazy though that I think looking at it now, I still feel that even though we've come so far, some of those thoughts still remain where it seems as though you can't imagine a Black person doing skilled work, that it's still such a big thing.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
this happened like, decades ago, being involved in, science, being involved in, being entrepreneurs and all this kind of stuff. They were more than just maids and, servants really to people. But even now I find, and I think we've talked about this before, that there still seem to be barriers.
Yeah.
And a common thing that is maybe brought up sometimes is a question that, with Black History Month, is it just like the token? Is it the, here you go, here's your month, and then we kind of just go back to normal? And maybe a conversation that we could have is, how do we change that? Because it's still happening now and it's still very important. But I would think that maybe in an ideal world, you wouldn't have to necessarily have to highlight, have a specific month dedicated to highlighting a particular race, but that everyone is appreciated throughout anyway, that you don't have to. I don't know if that makes any sense.
No, it makes complete sense. I read a quote from someone, and it said, "I celebrate Black History Month every month."
Yeah.
Every month for me is Black History Month. I don't stop educating myself on, issues to do with race or issues that Black people face, just because, it's September instead of October, or, April instead of February, in the US. And so I think it's a very important thing, because it creates more a lifestyle of appreciating Black people versus making it an event. Celebrating Black people shouldn't just be an event. I think events are there to highlight, some of the great things that Black people have done, and to recognize these achievements and to give Black people their flowers, essentially. But I think it's very important on a personal level to find that level of appreciation and have that element of compassion, so that you can move every day, without discriminating against someone just because they're Black. And then in October, you're extra sensitive. So you maybe won't discriminate a Black person in October just because, of everything else happening around.
Yeah. I think especially when we think about 2020, I don't know whether this is the same for you, but for me, I think Black History Month is hitting a bit different.
Yeah.
So slightly.
Just a little bit, yeah, because, we had Black Lives Matter earlier on in the year, and that was not just an America thing, but that literally reverberated across the entire world. If you were Black anywhere, it hit home. And I don't know what broke when that happened, but something clearly broke. And I think a lot of Black people identified with that moment as either that could be me, or are we still there? Have we not progressed?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's really hard, because, I think you asked, why now? I think it's because there kind of is that question of, have we moved far enough?
Yeah.
Are we truly moving far enough? Or is it one of those, we had that peak and now we're kind of plateauing in terms of the changes that we're bringing about when it comes to Black lives? And it does beg, I guess maybe I'd ask you guys, how has the events that have happened, because it's not just with Black Lives Matter, but, we're African, and it's about embracing African issues. So on the continent of Africa in itself, there has been so much that has been happening, and those are Black lives. Even though they're in a, probably Black majority context, those are Black lives and those do matter. And what does that mean for you as Africans living in the UK, going through Black Lives Matter? What does this mean to you? Does it mean any more or less to you than it did before?
To me, it means more. It definitely means more. It means that although it's quite shocking that even after all these years, we're still going through this type of phase that um people are still getting killed just because they're black. It's still there, but it means more that the information is spreading around. Naturally, I'm pretty sure at the beginning of Black Lives Matter, probably just the US and the UK. But if you looked at the one for 2020, the one that happened this year, France, Germany, New Zealand, a lot of countries were following. No, it wasn't a trend. Following the movement that enough is enough. Black people have dealt with enough. They've gone through a lot. I think it's time to give them peace and equality to have not just to be looking back every single time. So I think it definitely meant a lot to me that people are actually progressing, even though there's still some people who don't get it yet, but a lot of people are starting to get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I think it means right now it means a lot. I think more so because I'm on the precipice of entering the real world, and knowing what's out there more so now than I did, before coming to university, and being able to experience this level of frustration with wanting Black liberation, with more than just a law that says, oh, Black people are free, to actually experience that liberty, to experience the freedom of having nothing assumed for me because of the color of my skin, being able to have the anonymity that a white person can have whenever they walk into a room and not have the weight of Black people on them. I think our frustrations are very real. And like you said, Rachel, I think peace is 100% necessary. And movements are being made, and I think for the first time in a long time, I think people can say that there is active change that is being put in, and at an institutional level, for the first time in a very long time. I myself may not know it because I haven't been part of institutions for very long, but it feels different. It does definitely feel different.
I think there was a quote, I think, Chido, that you shared earlier, which talks about, maybe you should read it actually.
Yeah. So it's by Elif Shafak. Sorry, I have it written down just to make sure that I get it right. And it says, we need to tell different stories to humanize the other. I think that's such an important thing because, when you see situations happening, let's say in African countries or with Black people anywhere in the world, you can just assume and go, it's a Black people thing. It's just another struggle. And yet you don't really have that level of compassion to understand the story, the background, where they're coming from, how it's making them feel, why they're so frustrated, And I think that's just such a powerful statement. And it goes beyond just, issues of race. It goes to any issue, where there's bigotry involved, where you say, let me take a step back and look at this from a human level versus just assuming, stereotypes of a situation.
I think, it's crazy because I kept thinking and going, it's not the first time that we've heard of a Black person being killed.
Yeah.
And, it definitely is not. We've known it's happened for a very long time. I mean, yes, now in modern day, especially in America, but also throughout, history. And I wondered, and I was like, what broke? What has made so many people come? And it's almost as though, some people watch that video, right? And the whole thing was ridiculously painful. If anything, it forced you to be there in that moment, and it does not matter where you came from, you felt it. It's sad that people had to watch someone die and say they can't breathe to bring about that emotion. But I think it does show that sometimes you have to actively try and search yourself into the stories of the people around you, especially marginalized communities, right? And I know for us, we're Black, so we naturally, have that sense of empathy towards the Black plight, when it comes to educating ourselves. For us, it is very personal. But for me, and maybe you guys have other examples, I'm personally passionate about a lot of justice issues. And the greatest teacher for me was not necessarily to come in, I'll use maybe poverty and homelessness as an example. The greatest teacher for me wasn't necessarily being homeless, but taking the time to see the person sitting by the road as a person and as an equal. And I was bold enough to not just drop money, but to try sit and talk to them and find out their stories. And that has changed my entire perspective on things that I thought about in terms of poverty, and why people are homeless and the different situations that are going there. And I don't know what that may look like. I don't know if you guys have examples of what can that look like for someone trying to build that level of compassion for Black people. For me, it was having that conversation with a person and sitting down with them and trying to understand their lived experience. What could you say someone could do to build that level of empathy for the Black community?
To listen.
Yeah, definitely listen. People have been through different type of things. Even it doesn't matter. People think a lot of people think that it's because maybe this person doesn't have this amount of money, or maybe this Black person is richer than this Black person, and so because this person is poor or doesn't have enough money, the situations are different. The type of problems they go through are different. It's exactly the same. Just because I have money and you don't, or you have money and I don't, doesn't mean that my experience is going to be extremely different. It's going to be the same. The same way someone will be racist to you because you don't have money. The same way someone will be racist to me because thinking that I don't have money. So I think listening to people's perspectives, listening to what people have gone through is very, very big. So I think we should put it there, don't talk. The person shouldn't talk, listening, because people that want to understand and people that just want to hear are completely two different things. Some people will hear what you're saying and still say, but this happened. Someone that understands and wants to know will sit down, listen, and probably kind of put themselves in your shoes and be like, if this happened to me, just because I was white, just because of my skin color, how would I feel? So I think listening is a big thing.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Rachel, especially with everything that's been happening in Nigeria, and in your position as the welfare officer of your society. How have you been, trying to listen to the people in your society and even to yourself? Because that's an important thing to do.
I'm presently trying to get a hold of conflict. She's in her third year, so things are quite hectic for her. She's busy. Well, what I am trying to do is I want to get the emails of everyone in the community. Probably send like a big general email. If you want to talk, I know things are difficult. My family is in Nigeria as well, and all our families are also there. So you want to talk, it's not easy. You never know. I have people that went to the protest. I'm very, very thankful that nothing happened to them, but it's not something that everyone wishes on anybody. NSARS has been going on for a long time, since before I was born. I think 1970 something, or 1960, 1996. I think that's when it started, because that special anti-robbery the whole group was for robbery, but later spread into fraud. Now they're taking people just because I have an iPhone, or maybe because I have dreadlocks, or maybe because I'm driving the latest Benz, and you be like, how is that possible? I think they too have their own problems. The police officers too have their own problems. It's like a conversation with a friend. It was like, I think it was my sister I was talking to. She said, from what she had seen online, those officers too aren't being paid well. Imagine, like the amount of money is so little that some of their children don't go to school. Some of they have to sweat, like seriously sweat to get money just to buy food. So in that type of situation, they don't have a lot of money. They later see someone my age or younger than me, or maybe in their early 20s, who you don't expect to be having, maybe you don't expect to be having a big car. You don't expect them to be be with so much money. They see someone like that and they just presume that, okay, how can this person, me that I'm working I'm working 10 times harder than this person, how come this person is having more than me? So I think they take out that anger that they have from not being paid a lot and suffering on other people. I know it's not justified, but you understand where they are coming from. So NSARS is just a very, very big movie. It hasn't stopped. It's something that we're still fighting up to now. The killings, the amount of people that have been raped, the rape cases. I don't know. I really don't know the story of the rape cases, but it's not something small. And people think just because it's in Africa, we should deal with our own problems. Nigeria is not the only country in Africa going through. Congo is going through a lot of problems presently. So it just have to. I'm reaching out to people. I'm trying to send a general email to let everybody know that we are here to talk about it. I know we're all going through the same thing. Listening to your side and listening to my side can maybe reduce the anxiety, reduce the stress of having to think of everything. So that's what I'm basically trying to do.
Yeah, no, that's really good. It's not easy to be in a position like that where you can, reach out and hear how everyone else is struggling as well. But I wish you all the best in your
Thank
endeavors,
you.
and we'll definitely be standing with you. We stand with you. Being from Zimbabwe, both Natasha and I, we also understand what it can feel like to be abroad and have lots of problems happening back home, and protests and killings and rapes. So we definitely understand and stand with you. I guess I have one more question for both of you. Having to deal with all of this, the Black Lives Matter movement happening worldwide, and then NSARS in Nigeria and Zimbabwean Lives Matter back home in Zim, and the multiple other movements and issues that are happening with Black people all over the world. How does that affect you as a student at university? How has that impacted you, if it has at all?
I guess I'll go first. I think it's hard, and a big part of it has been learning how to compartmentalize, because unfortunately, I'm not afforded the opportunity to just weep and be in bed and go through the motions, because I have felt like I'm in a perpetual state of grieving, and there is no break with that, and uni is still going on. I still have to look for jobs and do applications and consider masters, and that doesn't stop. And I think that can be very overwhelming. But at the same time, I know that I don't have the I don't have the liberty to stop. I don't. And that's hard, because and this is why this conversation is so important when we're talking about compassion, because I don't have an answer to this, but there is a question of how do we care for those people that are going through things within our universities, as people are working within their companies, because people are grieving, and you kind of keep on moving as though everything is fine, and it's not. And that's, this is Black History Month and all the things that have happened with Black History Month. We're not even talking about COVID. We're not even going to start that conversation because that's a completely different thing. So this is such a heavy period. And honestly, I don't know how I'm coping at the moment. I don't even know. I can't even give tips. I'm still floating somehow. For God's
I
grace.
totally agree. It's not something you take lightly, and it's definitely not easy with all the uni work, all the extra work you're trying to do to build yourself when we're getting ready to leave school, go into the outside world. But problems like this back home, you're thinking of problems like this, you have a lot of work to do with uni, you have job interviews, you have your applications or everything. It's definitely not easy. I think, honestly, I agree with you. I really don't know how I'm coping with everything, but we are coping. That's the thing. You can't really explain it, but you are coping. You're trying to endure all this stress because you're trying to build something good for yourself. You're trying to build something good for your family and people to come after you. So I think that's it. I definitely don't know. I can't give you a definite way of saying, okay, this is how I'm going through everything. But I know one way or the other, I'm going through everything.
Yeah. I think that speaks to the resilience of Black people.
Yeah.
All of
Exactly,
them.
yeah.
100%. Yeah. I don't know, Chido, would you like to share? And then I think we'll just, wrap up.
Yeah. This has been a really, I don't even have the words for the kind of conversation we just had. I think this is incredibly important. And I'm very grateful that you were able to come and have this conversation with us, Rachel.
No,
Thank you.
thank you for having me.
Oh, no, glad. You can come back anytime.
No problem.
Anytime.
No problem.
I hope this was an enlightening conversation to all of our listeners, to our Nigerians, to our, Congolese friends, to Armenians as well. There
Yeah.
are a lot of people going through a lot right now. Everyone struggling with COVID. We stand with you. And we hope that this conversation made you smile a little bit, even if it was just a little.
Yeah. No, thanks
Definitely.
again, everyone. I think we're going to call that a wrap. That is episode 2 of this amazing thing. We definitely would love to connect with more of you. So if you're interested in having conversations with us, please do send us a message and we'll be happy to have you here so that we can discuss issues. This is a platform for students to discuss issues that are going on around the world, but also affecting us directly. And we're just here to have that conversation because I think this is what is needed during this time. So with that, have a great week. Remember to smile and remember to keep the conversation going wherever you are. Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.